There's a certain kind of pain that doesn't come with a clear reason. No argument, no dramatic ending. Just a slow, quiet fading where someone who once made you feel everything gradually starts to feel distant. The messages get shorter. The tone shifts slightly. The energy that used to fill every exchange just isn't there anymore. And you're left sitting with this hollow feeling, trying to understand what changed. No obvious mistake was made. Nothing exploded. It just faded. And somehow that's worse, because when something ends with a fight, at least you know why. But when it fades, when there's no clear reason, no defining moment, your mind starts filling in the blanks. You replay conversations, you analyze small details, you question your words, your tone, your timing. You wonder if you said too much or not enough. If you've ever been in that place, this video is for you. Because what most people never realize is this: the harder you try to hold on to someone's interest, the faster it tends to slip away. Not because you're not enough, not because you did something wrong, but because of something far more subtle, a pattern that builds slowly across dozens of small interactions, until one day the dynamic has completely shifted and neither person fully understands how it got there. When something new enters your life, your brain pays attention differently. New people, new conversations, new emotional experiences, they activate something. There's anticipation before each message, a lightness you can't quite explain. You find yourself thinking about the other person at random moments, not because you're trying to, but because your brain is genuinely engaged. It's processing something unfamiliar, something it hasn't figured out yet. And that process feels like being alive in a way that's hard to describe. But here's what nobody tells you. That feeling was never really about the other person. It was about novelty. And novelty, by its very nature, doesn't last. So what happens when the newness wears off? When your messages arrive at predictable times? When your reactions follow a pattern the other person has already learned? The brain quietly begins to disengage, not because they stopped caring, but because you stopped being a source of discovery. And for human beings, discovery isn't optional. Without it, attention drifts, not out of cruelty, just out of the way we're built. This is the first trap, becoming too readable. The second trap is one most people fall into with the best intentions: over-availability. When you like someone, you respond quickly, make time, show up consistently, and in theory, none of that is wrong. But emotionally, it creates a slow and invisible problem. When someone knows with certainty that you'll always be there, your presence begins to lose its weight. Not because they're ungrateful, but because the brain stops registering what it can fully predict. We don't notice the hum of the refrigerator until it stops. Presence works the same way. When it's constant, it becomes background noise. The third trap is imbalance. When one person is carrying more of the emotional weight, it creates a pressure that may never be spoken out loud, but is felt by both people. The other person starts to sense the gap, and instead of feeling motivated to close it, they begin to feel responsible for managing it, for meeting expectations that were never stated but always seemed to be there. And slowly the connection shifts from something they want to move toward into something they feel they need to manage. People don't stay in places that feel like obligation. But the most damaging trap is the one that happens inside you: the slow, quiet disappearance of yourself. Because when your focus shifts to keeping someone interested, you start adjusting. You hold back opinions that might create friction. You agree faster than you actually agree. You smooth over your edges to keep things comfortable. And from the outside, this looks like harmony. But underneath, you're removing the very thing that made you interesting in the first place. Because real attraction, the kind that lasts, is never built on agreement. It's built on depth, on the sense that there are still layers to this person you haven't uncovered yet. The moment you become fully predictable, fully agreeable, the curiosity disappears. And without curiosity, there is no pull. And here's the painful irony. The more consciously you try to appear interesting, the less interesting you become. Because magnetism isn't something you perform. It's something that happens when you stop performing. But when you're anxious about losing someone, your behavior tightens. Your words become calculated. Your reactions get filtered. And even if the other person can't name what they're sensing, something registers. Because genuine connection feels relaxed and unguarded. Controlled connection feels like effort. And nobody wants to be the reason someone else is working that hard just to seem natural. So what do you actually do with all of this? The first thing to understand is that interest cannot be manufactured. You cannot optimize your behavior until the right dynamic appears. What you can do, the only thing that actually works, is stop trying to control it. And that begins with space, not space as a game, real space, the kind that comes from genuinely returning to your own life, your own goals, your own interests, your own sense of who you are when no one is watching. When you stop organizing your emotional world around someone else's responses, something shifts. You become less reactive, less anxious. And paradoxically, that's when you become more interesting because you're no longer waiting, you're living. And there is a real difference in the energy of someone who is waiting versus someone who is fully present in their own life. What draws people in isn't need, it's fullness. It's that quiet sense that this person has a life, a perspective, an energy that exists independently of me, that they would be whole without me, and yet they're choosing to be here. That combination of wholeness and choice is one of the most naturally attractive things a person can embody. The second shift is bringing your real self into interactions, even the parts that might create friction. Say what you actually think. Push back when you disagree. Have opinions that are genuinely yours. Because the people who hold our attention longest are never the ones who always agree with us. They're the ones who surprise us, who say something we didn't expect. Depth isn't something you perform, it's something you stop hiding. The third shift is the hardest. Moving from needing to be liked to being willing to simply be yourself, even knowing some people won't stay, because when your primary goal is to be liked, you aren't really connecting. You're managing perception. Every word is filtered, every reaction measured, and even when it looks like closeness from the outside, there's a wall built from everything you held back. But when you drop that need and stop performing, everything changes. Things become lighter, more honest, more real. Conversations stop feeling like tests you're trying to pass and start feeling like genuine exchanges between two people who are both actually there. The right connection doesn't require this much effort. It doesn't ask you to shrink yourself or carefully manage how you come across. It doesn't leave you exhausted after every interaction, replaying the conversation, wondering if you said the right thing. The right dynamic feels easy, not because it lacks depth, but because it lacks performance. And here's what it all comes down to. You cannot lose the right person by being too real. You can only lose them by pretending to be something you're not and quietly wearing yourself down in the process. The people worth keeping don't need you to be perfect. They don't need you endlessly available or carefully timed. They just need you to show up fully as you are. And when you finally stop trying to be what you think someone else needs and start simply being what you actually are, you'll find that the right people don't need to be convinced to stay. They just do.